Today I'm going to be taking you through a preview of Eldfall Chronicles Northern Wind, an upcoming tabletop game launching June the 20th on Kickstarter. However, before I do, I feel that it's only fair to explain to you why this is not just another faceless Kickstarter launch. Now let's go back to May 2021, and a new name in the world of tabletop gaming called Free Company launched their first ever Kickstarter. This was an ambitious fantasy-themed miniature skirmish game by the name of Eldfall Chronicles. Now you may be asking why this was ambitious. Well, for a first launch, Free Company pledged to give you quite a bit. The game was set in its own world of Kalad and promised rich and deep background lore. Its art style looked beautiful and was a far cry from the well-trodden paths of the Tolkien-inspired fantasy tropes. Its renders of the planned miniatures looked amazing and wonderfully detailed, and the gameplay itself promised not only the ubiquitous player versus player mode, but also a solo and cooperative mode too, something not often seen in miniature skirmish games. The gameplay was D20 dice based, and the inspiration from popular RPGs and other more interesting miniatures games was clear to see. The rules included a clever action-reaction mechanic, so that even when it wasn't your turn, it was still your turn to act. There was the promise of not only the usual competitive tournament style of play, but a quest-driven narrative style too. Now fast forward to earlier this year in January 2023, and those amazing folks who backed this ambitious Kickstarter and brought that dream to life for Free Company started to receive their pledges. And guess what? It was everything that Free Company had said it would be, and more. The final production miniatures looked amazing, the rules made for a tactical but fun gameplay experience, and the overall quality and polish of the finished product made it something you'd be proud to have in your collection. It even has a 9.5 rating on BoardGameGeek for those of you who are interested in those sort of things. Now why am I telling you all of this first? Well, there are two reasons that I think it's important background information to have. Firstly, when it comes to Kickstarter, people look not only for an interesting product, but also a little bit of trust and reputation, which when companies launch their first couple of Kickstarters, they don't always have. Free Company might not be a name you're familiar with, however they do now have a Kickstarter successfully delivered, a product out there that you can go and buy, and a reputation for delivering quality rules, miniatures and products. Secondly, I'm telling you this because their newest Kickstarter, Eldfall Chronicles Northern Wind, can be seen as not only an expansion to the original Skirmish game for those who already have it, but also, more importantly, to those of you who are learning about this for the first time, yes, I'm looking at you, a standalone dungeon crawl style game set in the same mystical world of Kalad. Northern Wind, as we'll call it now so as not to confuse it with the original Skirmish game, can be played by 1 to 4 players, but with an optional 5th player. Now, you can choose to tackle the quests alone, controlling multiple heroes yourself, and the game's hostiles will be controlled by a situational AI system, which is very easy to use. You can also play it with 4 people controlling a hero each, and a 5th person could choose to take control of the hostiles, rather than letting the AI take the blame for those sneaky attacks, whilst also narrating the quests and adding some atmosphere to the branching events for the hero party. So speaking of branching quests, what is the setting for this game and how does the game work? Northern Wind invites you to embark on a challenging expedition in the northern Empire of Soga. The Empire has been locked in a fierce battle against the invading Oni, monstrous demons that pose a significant threat to the northernmost part of the Empire. The grueling battle against the devouring scourge has been going on for years, and the toil on the people has been reaching a breaking point, forcing the Empire to plan an attack on the Oni lair. Unfortunately, the Empire's plan to play the offensive is thwarted by a clever ambush. Now the fate of the Empire rests in the hands of 4 heroes: Anari, Saijan, Tharos and Nara. The journey ahead is filled with peril and will test the courage, strength and wit of the heroes. They are now locked in a race against time where they must journey to the treacherous slopes of Mount Byodo and combat malevolent entities that seek to destroy them and reach the summit before the blood moon rises and breaks the curse holding back the demonic Oni, and something much, much worse too. If you hadn't guessed it from the art and this snippet of background, this fantasy world is very much inspired by Japanese culture, history and legends, which is fitting as the designers of this game are Japanologists. They have tried and, in my opinion, succeeded to create a fantasy world which could feel very much believably real. Anyway, onto the gameplay. You play the part of the aforementioned heroes, who each have a character card, which shows their stats and abilities. All of the information that you need to know about what your hero can do is on this card, and even the keywords, which might seem a bit confusing at first, have a written explanation on the back of the card, so there's no diving into the rulebook each time you wish to do something. Your hero will start at level 1 and can level up during the campaign by spending Valor points, which your party will acquire throughout their quests. You can choose to spend them on leveling up your characters, opening up access to new skills, traits and spellbooks, along with increasing your choice of weapons and items. And as your heroes level up, they also develop synergies amongst the party as their time together and experience grows. You could, however, hang on to those Valor points and influence events and quests. The choice is entirely yours. Your hero starts their quest with a choice of weapons and items, but you can only carry so much with you, so you may not be able to take everything that you want to. In order to keep this easily trackable during gameplay, each weapon and item has its own card, which again will give you all of its stats and abilities, so you can reference them very quickly during playtime. Each of your heroes will get a number of activation tokens equal to their stamina stat. So for example, we can see here that Tharos has 2 stamina, so he gets 2 activation tokens. An activation token allows you to choose from a few options. You could do 1 move action and 1 normal action. This would allow you to maybe walk forward and then shoot your crossbow, or maybe you could stand still, which is called idle in the game, and then trade some items with another hero. It could also allow you to do 1 special movement like run, climb or jump. During this phase of the game, your heroes can activate in whichever order you choose. You can activate 1 hero twice and then choose another hero, or you can activate 1 hero once, activate another hero once, move back to the first one, go to a completely different hero, and so on, until you either run out of activation tokens to use, or you decide you've done enough this turn. This brings me onto the action-reaction mechanic. If you or a hostile enemy sees their opponent move, they get the chance to declare a reaction to that move, but only if they have an activation token available to spend. Remember, you have the same amount of activation tokens as your stamina. Well, if you have no activation tokens left, this represents you being fatigued and you just don't have the strength to react to what you see. Sometimes you may need to dodge out of the way of an arrow flying towards you, or maybe you want to attack an enemy who rushes at you during their turn. This action-reaction mechanic is very simple in practice, but brings a tactical and interesting addition to the dungeon crawling experience. Your AI-controlled hostiles also have activation tokens, and so they too can become fatigued. They have stat cards, just like the heroes do, with all of the abilities on them, but they also have these handy action-reaction cards, which show you what the enemy will do in certain situations. When it's their turn to act, follow the active side operations, choosing the first one that applies to the hostile model. If you can't fulfill any of the criteria, the enemy just stands there and does nothing. On the flip side of the card is the reactive side. During the hero's movement step, should any of the criteria to react become fulfilled, the hostile model will spend an activation token and react to you. The hostiles get to replenish their tokens during the end phase when all players have ended their activations, and the heroes get to replenish theirs at the start of the hostiles' turn. So just remember that they're a resource that needs to be managed, and if you use them up reacting, you won't be able to do anything on your actual turn. Should you want to attack your enemies, you do want to attack your enemies, right? Combat, spellcasting, and certain ability checks are all carried out by rolling the required number of d20 dice, referencing the required stat and trying to roll equal or under that target number. Some things will modify that target number, such as the distance that you are from the enemy for range shooting, maybe your enemy is on higher ground and so gets a cover bonus, or maybe you're just blindly shooting spells across a misty bridge. If you successfully hit your opponent, you will then roll again, this time using the power of your weapon and subtracting the armor of your enemy to give you a new target number that you have to equal or roll under. A success here will see you dealing a wound. As you can react to your opponent's antics and them to yours, you will sometimes be rolling a dodge, where a success sees you avoiding any successful hits, except for critical hits, or maybe you're fighting face to face, where you will have what is called a confrontation roll. Here you match up all of the successful hits for you and your enemy, and if your dice rolls are higher than theirs, and vice versa, they are cancelled and removed. So if I roll a success on a 14 and my opponent rolls a success on a 12, we both have successful rolls, but mine is a higher number, so my dice cancels out theirs and I've won the combat doing one hit. This might sound a little bit complex to explain, but once you do it for the first time, it becomes second nature. During the quest, you will turn over instance cards once per round, and these represent unpredictable circumstances that happen during your quest. They can be positive or negative and add to the replayability and surprise elements of your story. Along with this, you also have event cards which you will draw before each new quest after the initial one. These will introduce diverse situations, riddles and challenges that will cause your quest to branch off in different directions, depending upon the decisions that you make. A separate quest log will contain all of the information that you need once you've made the choice, so you don't get to see that, well, what would happen if on the actual card itself. Okay, so what other cool things can I tell you about? Well, the game takes place on these tiles. So movement is measured out by moving section to section, shown by these white lines on the tiles themselves. And while you can move to anywhere in that next section, position does matter for line of sight, to and from the enemies. So think about where you're going to place your model. Also, speaking of line of sight, these tiles are clever in that, unlike a traditional dungeon crawler where you are by default in a dungeon with high stone walls, in Northern Wind you're exploring mountain passes, climbing across old wooden bridges over bottomless chasms, and so the line of sight can sometimes be seen across many tiles ahead. This is covered very cleverly by the edge of the tiles. If the edge is coloured black, it's a solid cliff wall or a hillside that blocks line of sight, and if it's a white edge, it's open to the elements, and so you may be able to see for some distance. This is very interesting when you're firing ice bolts across a gap or shooting arrows back at a faraway enemy that you're running away from. The tiles, like everything shown here, are just printed prototypes. However, in the final product they will be double-sided, which gives a huge amount of scope for quest design. Now I want to talk about the miniatures. These here are 3D printed prototypes of the sculpts that you will see in the final game. However, the quality will be the same highly detailed miniatures that we've seen from the original Skirmish game, made with the same premium Unicool resin, which is both highly detailed and durable. Now I can tell you, as someone who has these original miniatures in my hand right now, they are among the best quality miniatures I have ever seen. The heroes in Northern Wind look stunning, and there's also a good variety of hostiles to come up against, such as Vengeful Spirits, Red and Blue Oni, the Forgotten Hero, and Oni Marauders, with more available in the optional side quest add-ons. The game will contain approximately 13 to 20 quests per storyline, depending upon the choices that you make along the way, which will also give you different endings to the quest, and there is planned to be 3 storylines in the game, so there's plenty to get your teeth into. Now if you're someone who already owns the original Skirmish game of Eldfall Chronicles, or maybe you're now interested in it, this Northern Wind game will allow you to play the player versus player solo or co-op skirmish game with the miniatures that are included in this game. They'll all come with the Skirmish game stats, which is slightly different to the Dungeon Crawler stats, and you can add them into your Eldfall Chronicles Skirmish game, giving you some extra options to your play experience. Don't forget that the rules of Eldfall Chronicles and Eldfall Chronicles Northern Wind are very, very similar, so once you've learned one game, you pretty much know how to play the other. Now I think I've covered most of the things that make Eldfall Chronicles Northern Wind a Kickstarter that stands out from the rest, and I'm sure that during the campaign there'll be special stretch goals of extra characters and their miniatures, extra event cards, extra tiles, plus some surprises of enemies you can face that haven't been shown just yet. If you want to know more, then head over to the Northern Wind Kickstarter page, which I've linked below in the description of this video, and check out just what's on offer in the pledge levels. If you want to know more about Eldfall Chronicles and Northern Wind, why not subscribe to my channel, where I'll have a full review of the Skirmish game coming up very soon. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.